What is going on, Colts Nation? And welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guy, Cody, here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have officially made it. The Indianapolis Colts play a football game today. Can you believe it? I can't believe we finally got to this spot. It's absolutely crazy. So, with that being said, since the Colts are playing a football game today, and by the way, I'm going to be live streaming the game tonight, doing some play-by-play, so be sure to check that out. But in regards to the Colts and them playing today, obviously it's a preseason game, so whatever happens in terms of the score doesn't really matter that much. But there are some definitely things that you can pick out, and definitely some things that I am hoping to see here tonight. So I wanted to talk about three different things in particular, right? Because you could go through every position group and say, I'm looking for this player, looking for that. And we kind of already have a little bit looked at a couple players that we're interested in watching. So if you haven't checked out that video, be sure to go do that here on the main channel. But in regards to the things that I personally am hoping to see here in the first preseason game, I have three things that I'm going to talk about. So the first thing being the quarterbacks, right? I need to see these quarterbacks, how they're going to perform when they're playing against another team that doesn't have a horseshoe on the side of their helmet, right? I need to see what these quarterbacks are going to look like. We know by now Anthony Richardson's going to be the starting quarterback in this game. So how does he look against the Baltimore defense that, frankly, a couple days ago, he had some success against? So how is he going to look against this Baltimore defense? Is he going to be efficient? Is he going to do some of the stuff that we saw him take steps forward in training camp? How does it actually look, when there's a little bit more of a live bullet setting? While it's not fully a total indication because it still is preseason, it's going to be pretty telling tonight. How does Anthony Richardson look against players that aren't on his own team, right? So curious about that. And then when Daniel Jones does get in, because he's going to get a lot of time tonight as well, how does he look, right? And do either of these quarterbacks necessarily distinguish themselves from the other? Is there a very clear-cut, number one quarterback right now? I mean, I think if you're asking most people and people who are out there and people who are fans, it seems like the consensus has been Anthony Richardson as of recent, but we'll just have to see on that. But I'm really curious how both these quarterbacks look, and does one maybe set themselves apart a little bit more from the other? Because here coming up next Saturday, it's probably going to be Daniel Jones if Shane Steichen's comments hold up from what he said about kind of how the Colts are going to divvy up these starting reps, in terms of the preseason. So does Anthony Richardson maybe change that if he does play really well tonight? And if Daniel Jones has a rough night, or if Daniel Jones plays really well, Anthony Richardson struggles, who knows what's going to happen there? But I am just so curious what exactly is going to happen in regards to the two quarterbacks that are competing for that starting number one position there. So that's the first thing for me, guys, that I'm really curious about, and probably the one that everybody's talking about, right? The one that everybody is looking at. All eyes are going to be on them for good reason. And so that is the first one. For me, the second one is going to be really interesting as well, because we've been hearing a lot about Adonai Mitchell. This entire camp, we've been hearing about him. Kind of had a rough start there in week one, but then as soon as the pads went on, A.D. Mitchell has been absolutely electric. I mean, we saw a video come out yesterday of him just torching the Ravens secondary, and the starting Ravens secondary at that, right? He's torching guys like Nate Wiggins, Marlon Humphrey, just guys like that. It's crazy. It's crazy how good A.D. Mitchell looks right now. And again, we know his rookie season, it was pretty rough in a lot of ways. Very underwhelming. I mean, he just didn't do a lot of the things that you were hoping he would do in terms of a complete receiver. Now, we know he can get open. We know he is so different from each and every guy on this Colts receiving room. And honestly, I think his ceiling is the highest of any guy in this room. I really believe that. That's saying something, because you have guys like Michael Pittman, guys like Josh Downs, guys like Alec Pierce on your roster right now. But I still believe at A.D. Mitchell's peak, he is the best receiver on this roster, which is crazy to say. That just goes to show you how good this wide receiver group is for the Indianapolis Colts, if everybody's able to reach their top, reach their level that they can get to. So that is definitely a good thing there. But I'm just curious on A.D. Mitchell. Does it translate to an actual game setting? Because we know he can cook guys on one-on-ones. Heck, we saw him do it against Charvarius Ward, of all people. So we know A.D. Mitchell has the talent to be one of the best receivers in football, but there's more to being a receiver, obviously, than just getting open and creating separation. He needs to do the other things that receivers do. So I am so curious to watch AD Mitchell here in year two. And, obviously year one, like I said, very forgettable for AD Mitchell, but the talent is so obvious with this kid. So can he put it all together here in year two and be a really reliable target? And especially when you have two quarterbacks who struggled a year ago, you need a guy like AD Mitchell to be very consistent. You need him to break out this year, because if you have four reliable targets at wide receiver, 4+, I'll say, like if your top four are what we think they can be, and then you have guys like Ashton Dulin and Anthony Gould as well to round out that group, and you have Tyler Warren, I mean, this is a really, really, really talented group. So, yeah, all that to say, AD Mitchell's kind of the wild card for me, because if he continues to build off the performances he's had, AD Mitchell's going to turn into one of the best receivers in football. I'm just telling you. But that's a big if, right? He's got to actually do it in a game setting. So today will be very telling, I think, for me on kind of truly where is AD Mitchell right now? Where is he as a player? We've seen him do it in practice, but game's a whole different setting, right? It's a whole different environment. So very curious on that for AD Mitchell. And what does he look like here in year number two? All right, the final thing that I want to talk about here, this is kind of a general one, a little bit more broad, but I am just so curious to see this new defense in action. Again, you can never get a truly full picture in the preseason, but I'm just so curious what it's going to look like here. And we heard a little bit about the joint practice and how, that secondary, they were making some plays against Lamar Jackson, right? You saw guys that were just consistently getting their hands on the ball. Lamar Jackson had kind of an off day from what people were saying. So I'm just so curious what this group looks like. And obviously, we know the cornerbacks aren't going to be at full strength. I don't even know if Justin Wally's going to play in this game, because he left practice a couple days ago with an apparent knee injury. He was just held out of the second half of practice, so the Colts want to be careful with him. I'm not sure. But regardless of this, I'm just fascinated to see this new look defense, right? And the change in scheme a little bit. So I am just so curious to see Lou Anarumo, this new defensive look. You got a lot of new players that you brought in this year. So how did this defense look compared to where it was not even a year ago? So that's really what I'm curious about. And then within that, some of the young players, guys like Leatu Latu, right? Leatu Latu is a big player for me, the big one on that defensive line. And then a couple other young guys that I'm curious about as well. And we'll see some guys if they play or not and how long they play. So again, it's not a true picture of exactly how it's going to look, but I am just so curious to see this defensive line in action. I would throw in a fourth one as well. I'm curious to see two of the new starters on the offensive line in Tanner Bortolini and then Matt Gonsalves at right guard. I am so curious on that, because we already know the other three. We know Big Q. We know Bernard Ryman. We know Braden Smith. We know what they're capable of. But how do these two other starters, the draft picks from 2024, how do they look here as first-time, full-time starters? So that is really it, though, guys, for what I am hoping to see here tonight. Again, I've said it a couple times. I'll say it again. It is preseason, so you're not going to get a full picture until week 1 in September against the Miami Dolphins. But at least for the sake of this, Colts football is back, which is definitely exciting, and just excited to see the Colts play at all and get maybe a few pictures. And obviously outside of the starters, some other backup guys as well. I'm very interested to focus on, that backup running back position would be one. The backup tight end position would be another. I'm fascinated to see the interior of the defensive line. The linebackers, honestly, guys, that might be the biggest intrigue on the defensive side of the ball, not starters, because right now, I don't know who's going to be the other starting linebacker outside of Jalen Carlisle. Outside of Zaire Franklin, I really don't know. Is it going to be Jalen Carlisle? Is it going to be Cam McGrone? Is it going to be Joe Bashi? I don't know. All these guys have cases to make for it. All these guys have made some plays in camp. So I am just so curious on that as well. But yeah, guys, that's just the stuff I'm looking for here. I'm kind of just as I'm talking, I'm kind of thinking about a few other things. So it wasn't really 3 like I initially said, probably more like 4 or 5. But there's just so much to talk about and so many things that I'll be curious about and get maybe a little bit of a better feel for maybe where certain positions and players are currently at the time right now. So let me know your guys' thoughts, though, in the comments down below. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to hit subscribe. be sure to hit the notification bell so that you know when we drop fresh content just like this. Like I said at the top of the video, guys, I'm going to be going live here at around 6:45-ish for the game at 7 tonight against the Baltimore Ravens. So you definitely want to be a part of that and check us out and come hang out with me. So that'll do it for this one, though, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.